Hey, this is Mr. Drogemeyer. Thanks for joining me for our Algebra 1 lesson videos. Today we are looking at lessons 4 and 5 from Unit 5, Key Features of Linear Graphs. In our last lesson, we talked about some different forms of linear equations, what those graphs look like. Today we're going to continue on with that, look at one new format of a linear equation that we can use. So let's jump in with some of these vocabulary terms. So we have increasing linear function, decreasing linear function. We say that a linear function is increasing if its slope is greater than 0. So we have a positive slope, and that means that the line is going to rise from the left to the right. So if we think about on a graph, if I have a line that as I move from the right to the left, that line is getting higher and higher on the graph, that's going to be an increasing linear function. So it rises from left to right. If I have a decreasing linear function, that means it's going to have a slope that's less than 0, so a negative slope, and that line is going to fall as I move from left to right. So the graph that you're seeing down here at the bottom of your screen, this line, this would be a decreasing linear function because as I move from the left to the right, that line is falling. All right, then the next two concepts we touched on in our last lesson, x-intercept, y-intercept. X-intercept is going to be the point where that line crosses the x-axis. And we would also say that it's the value of the function when y equals 0. So x-axis, y equals 0, or x-intercept. Y-intercept, that's going to be the point where our line crosses the y-axis. And so when when x equals 0, the value of the function is going to be that y-intercept. So that's a little bit of review. The form that we're going to look at today is called point-slope form. And it looks like this: y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And you can use point-slope form anytime that you know one point on the line and the slope of the line. Now, when we looked in the last lesson, we talked about slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is simple and it's great, but in order to use slope-intercept form, you have to know what that y-intercept is and the slope. For point-slope form, if I know the slope and any other point on the line, I can use point-slope form to write the equation of the line. I can even, if I don't know the slope, but I know 2 points that are on the line, I can use point slope. Sorry about that interruption. If I know 2 points on the line, I can use those 2 points to find the slope and then use that slope and then one of those points with point slope form. And so we're going to look at how we can use that point slope form here in just a moment. So let me scroll this down. So I have a graph of a line. So I have the graph. I don't know the equation of this graph, of the equation for that graph. So they've asked me to identify the x-intercept, the y-intercept, the slope, and the equation of the graph. And so I'm just going to kind of walk you through a few different forms of that equation for this line. So first of all, let's answer the questions that we have here. So our x-intercept, where does this graph cross the x-axis? Well, it's going to cross here at x equals 2. So our x-intercept is 2, 0. X is 2, y is 0. Our y-intercept is here at 0, 1. So when x is 0, y is 1. Our slope, got a few different ways that we can find the slope. We talked about, let's go ahead and use that. We're going to use our rate of change formula. So if I take the difference between the y values in these 2 points, so 0 minus 1 over the difference between the x's in these 2 points, so 2 minus 0 My slope is going to be 0 minus 1 is -1. 2 minus 0 is 2. So my slope is -1/2. And we can see that on the graph as well. To go from this point to that point, I go down 1, which is a -1, and then to the right 2, that's a +2. So -1/2 is our slope. All right, and so we have several different ways that we could write this equation. So our simplest way is going to be to write it in slope-intercept form because we know the slope. So thinking of y equals mx plus b, m is our slope, which we said is -1/2. Our y-intercept, we said, is at 0, 1. So we say the y-intercept is +1. So this would be one form that we could write that equation. If we wanted to write it in slope-intercept form, y equals -1/2 x plus 1. If, say, we didn't know what that y-intercept was, maybe we just knew the x-intercept and we knew the slope. Well, if that was the case, then I could use point slope form to write the equation of the line as well. And so what point slope does is we're going to take a point that's on the line. So for example, let's use just a different point here. So let's say we're going to use, let's say we know this point here, -4, 3. We know that point on the line, and we know our slope of -1/2. So just pretending at the moment that we didn't know what those x and y intercepts were. To use point slope form, it's y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So the way that this form works, that y and that x are going to stay a part of your equation. The y1 and the x1 are going to be the x and y value from the point on the line that we know. So we said we know that this point, -4, 3, is on that line. So I'm going to take the y value from that point. So the y value is 3. It's going to be y minus 3. We're always subtracting that y value from that point. Equals m, which is our slope. We said that that's -1/2. And that's times x minus x1. Well, x1 is going to be the x value from this point. So x minus -4. Well, minus -4 is the same as adding 4. So this would be a form of that equation in point slope form. And what you would find if we wanted to simplify this, so we distribute and we move things around, if I simplify one that's in point slope form, I can simplify it down to the point that I get to that slope intercept form. So the nice thing here is that you have some different ways that you can find that equation of the line depending on what information you know about it. All right, and that's all I've got for you today. I appreciate you taking the time to watch. Thanks and have a great day.